Denver football after dark on this Thursday night in the Mile High City, unlocking a crucial secret to the Denver Broncos culture and future. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Because the training camp day on Thursday, the practice was without pads, wasn't terribly eventful. So, wanted to kind of dive in to something bigger picture. So you see the four guys there in the graphic, left to right: Adam Trautman, Caleb Lohner, Pat Bryant, and Trent Sherfield. You see two veterans and you see two rookies. So what connects them? Two tight ends, two receivers, two veterans, two rookies. What are they a part of that's part of that crucial secret? Well, the crucial secret is that you have two veterans who, they're not superstars. They're mid-range type players. And yet they are open, giving, and willing to share everything in terms of wisdom, tips, secrets, the whole Megillah with their young teammates. They are invested in making them better. It is a perfectly functional locker room that the Broncos have. More than functional. It is downright harmonious, even though you see little joking back and forth in practice. Malcolm Roach and Marvin Mims Jr. exchanging words. It's a little trash talk. But that's okay. You get that from time to time. But the deeper secret, the deeper thing that matters is that you have the veterans helping the rookies, that you have mentorship, you have older players taking younger players under their wing, showing them the ropes, passing the torch to the younger generation. I mean, you take Trent Sherfield and Pat Bryant, for example. I mean, Trent Sherfield, if he makes the team, he's probably wide receiver 6. He's an excellent special teamer and knows that's where his bread is buttered. I had a long conversation with him today after practice. A wonderful conversation, by the way. Trent Sherfield is a heck of a guy. And definitely one of those guys who's worth you rooting for. But, you know, as he told me, he wants to watch Pat Bryant succeed and outdo him over time. But it's possible in this, cutthroat business that there may come a point where Pat Bryant takes Trent Sherfield's roster spot. I mean, who knows? Maybe there are only 5 receivers on the roster, and Trent Sherfield is released and thrown into the pit of players released, and maybe they're doing the Lil Jordan Humphrey thing with him, playing roster games and bringing him back. And Pat Bryant's on the 53, and Trent Sherfield isn't. But that doesn't mean Sherfield isn't willing to share every kernel of knowledge with Pat Bryant. Adam Trautman, he's in year 6. He's in the second year of his contract. He's certainly one of the most trusted Broncos. He probably knows the Sean Payton offense better than anybody in the locker room. He probably understands Sean Payton better than anybody in the locker room because he's the only guy there. He's got more experience playing for Sean Payton than anybody else. It's his 5th year with him, 2 years in New Orleans, 3 years in Denver. And being a guy who's in the second year of his contract and Caleb Lohner being a rookie, I mean, it's entirely possible that if Lohner develops well, that next off season, maybe the Broncos say, okay, we make a tough choice here and we move on with Caleb Lohner, and there isn't room for you, Trout, on the roster. There isn't room to re-sign you when we move on. But it doesn't mean that Adam Trautman isn't willing to put the time in to show Caleb Lohner everything about what he knows. And Troutman's done this before. He did that with Lucas Krull, both in New Orleans and then after Krull came to Denver. This is just what he does. He is free-flowing with everything he's learned, willing to pass everything on, invested in his teammates, invested in making sure that there's nothing that you hold back. And Trautman even says, hey, it's a cutthroat business. It's the reality of it. But that doesn't mean he's not going to share everything. They're more focused on the success of the team. They are more focused on the success of their teammates as people, as fellow players. This is what a successful locker room culture looks like. Everybody looking out for each other. Everybody wanting to uplift each other. Even though they're all battling for the same thing, those precious roster spots. They're all helping each other. It's pretty amazing to see. We're going to play a few sound bites here because a lot of this came out of conversations that I had with Trautman and Trent Sherfield in the last few days. We're actually going to start with Trent Sherfield here, who chatted with me after practice on Thursday. And when I do these interviews, I never know where the conversation's going to go. And I think actually it's really good to take it that way. I don't believe as an interviewer that you should go in with an agenda, that you should just go in with an open and curious mind and not really know where it's going to go and not say, okay, I want to write this specific story. I think that's dangerous. I have been in workplaces where they wanted to plan the content out days in advance and say, okay, we're going to write this angle. And so you want to get this out of a specific player. And I didn't really like that. I actually would prefer to just sit down and talk with the player and see where the conversation goes, and it might lead you to something that you didn't know. I didn't know when I shook Trent Sherfield's hand and began chatting with him. I didn't know it was going to lead me to learning that he and Pat Bryant have this close relationship as teammates, that they've become mentor and protege. I didn't know that before. And because I just kind of let the conversation go, just asked open-ended questions, let him talk and then asked and then kind of responded to that. And I just I learned something new. Well, I'm going to start with first Trent Sherfield kind of talking about how he kind of basically pays it forward, that he had talked with me about all the people that had kind of helped him to this point. Named coaches, named teammates. He was with the Arizona Cardinals. For example, one of the people he named was the great Larry Fitzgerald. And here he begins to kind of talk about how with all that he learned from all these people he came across, how he feels a responsibility and a duty to make sure that it's now his turn as a veteran to share that with the next generation of players. And of course, so many young receivers in the Broncos wide receiver room. Here's Trent Sherfield talking about that.
Yeah, I think that all those things that I've learned, from these different individuals, it would be selfish of me not to pass that on to guys. And I think the biggest thing for me, it's not really about the on the field stuff. Like when you get here and you make it through the door, you have somewhat of talent. Now it's just more so about, okay, what does it look like to take care of my body? What does it look like to eat right? What does it look like to be a pro? And so some of those things, like I'm even discussing now with Pat Bryant, like he's kind of like, I kind of making sure to stand on him, just making sure that, because he's a young receiver right now, a rookie. He's a rookie, and this is probably going to be the longest year of his life. And it's just about I want to be able to make sure that he knows and understands that, it takes what it takes. And being a pro, and I want to be able to see his career go further than mine, because it's all about doing the right things when it comes to this game.
Think about the little things, right? Like, nutrition, hot tub, cold tub, things like that. Because when you get to this level, everybody's talented. Like you said, everyone's got that ability. It is those little things that end up separating the players who succeed from the ones who kind of get lost in the shuffle. The players that endure from the ones who go away. And take someone like Trent Sherfield is a great example of someone who has succeeded and endured. I mean, here's someone who was undrafted coming out of Vanderbilt, obviously took a lot of that advice to heart, learned, applied it, and now he's headed into his 8th season. He's made a career that probably a lot of people did not think he was going to have when he went through the draft process back in 2018 and went undrafted. So now he's established himself. And when he went into the free agency process, I mean, he didn't stay on the market long. The Broncos snapped him up pretty quickly. You'll be able to see that whole conversation in the next few days over at the Denver Sports YouTube channel. He actually talks about how he got the full court press from both Darren Rizzi, the Broncos special teams coordinator, and Sean Payton, and how they made him feel wanted here. So, but he reaches out. It's a little different for Adam Trautman with Caleb Lohner, because Trautman's been around, but the same thing is going on there with Pat Bryant and Trent Sherfield. You see sort of a focus on the non-football stuff, or the stuff that is kind of a part of football but isn't necessarily on the field stuff. Because the football part, Pat Bryant has got down because he's had a pretty robust football life to this point. It's much different for Caleb Lohner, of course, because he doesn't really have that football life, right? He just basically took up the game, and we all know about the 4 catches, 4 touchdowns that he had last season at the University of Utah. So the work there, it's a lot of football type of work, and here's Trout talking about that.
I've helped him a lot, but he's very curious. Obviously, he hasn't played much football. Like, that's real. That's not a shade. He just hasn't. So he's asking the right questions, participating in meetings really well, and then obviously, like, he has flashes of things, and you're like, wow, that's pretty damn good. So it's just getting him to do it consistently, and he's super young, and he's brand new to football for the most part. So he's coming along really well.
Super young and brand new to football, and certain parts of his game are going to come faster than others. Like when you talk about the things that Caleb Lohner is doing well right now, it's all in the passing game. It's all in terms of how he's able to use his length and his reach, and as you see, pluck it like that. When he makes a catch downfield, it looks usually exactly like that clip that I just showed you. It's crisp. It's clean. Snatches it out of the air. I mean, it's impressive. He uses his length well. It's been interesting kind of watch and see him do that because there haven't been many opportunities for him to kind of do the box out move. There was that touchdown that he had against CU last year, and that's in the red zone. That's sort of that's the basketball box out. Like he's getting ready to get a way to rebound, right? Haven't really seen those types of opportunities happen. He's just getting downfield, making a play like that. There was one catch he had a few days ago where he actually ran a good route to set it up, and that encouraged me watching him because I thought it might be a little bit before you actually start to see him succeed with his route running, setting up a reception. I thought what you'd see most of his success come from would be via his reach and his wingspan. But he's got a ways to go. But here's a little more from Trout on Kalen Ballage when I chatted with him a few days ago.
He loves it. He wants to learn. There's a reason he got into football. Obviously, he's only had 50-something career snaps or something like that, which is kind of interesting. But he's done a great job, and he fits the personality of the room as well. I mean, everybody in our room does, and that's obviously great when you're one of the guys who have been here and you kind of establish how the room is built mentally and all that. So now it's like everything is just elevating, and it's an unbelievable feeling. And he knows he's got a lot to learn, but he is picking it up very well. And naturally, you can see the talent that he has. Obviously, he's big and he's fast, and he has a lot of natural strength. So it's just getting his body in the positions to display all that.
The way the team responded to that catch he had out there, the last play of minicamp, like everyone went, ooh, when you impress everybody like that, that's pretty notable, I think.
Oh, yeah. And plays like that, catches like that are what he needs to, to stick around. And he knows that. This is a cutthroat business, and he's capable. There's no doubt about it.
I'll say this, like some of us that cover the team, we start kind of putting together our mock 53s at this point and all of us will probably do a projected 53 in the next week or two. I think a few of us are putting Kalen Lohner on that 53, thinking that they may not be able to sneak him through. Like he might be this year's Frank Crum in that there may not be a role for him right away, but he ends up being on there. But it's very helpful that you've got somebody like Adam Trautman who is just opening the vault and sharing all of his accumulated knowledge. And if Lohner does well, I mean, you might be talking about a situation a year from now where Lohner is literally taking Adam Trautman's spot. And like Trout said, it's cutthroat business. He knows it. He knows that the information he passes on might end up meaning that this guy takes his job, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be open with it and share all of it. That doesn't mean Trent Sherfield isn't going to open the vault and not share all of it with Pat Bryant. That's just one of the cool things about this team. And one of the cool things about the locker room culture around here. Guys helping each other, supporting each other. I mean, and I know it's kind of cliche, but not every team is quite like that. Like sometimes it does get a little tense in those rooms. But you've got a lot of harmony and support with the Broncos. I mean, actually, you look at some of the position groups. I mean, you look at the defensive line group, for instance. I mean, that may have the best chemistry of any position group I've covered in my career as far as the personalities meshing together. Trout talked about the tight ends and how Caleb comes in and fits perfectly amid the personalities in that room. He, early in that conversation, talked about Evan Ingram coming in and how Evan's personality fit that room perfectly. And he stepped right in and just meshed completely. So that's another credit to George Payton and Sean Payton in terms of their team building philosophy and identifying the right people to bring in to fit this. But this support, these players, these veterans supporting the rookies, it's a secret to the culture, but it's also a secret to the future, because by giving this information, by Trent Sherfield sharing all this, he's helping Pat Bryant find his footing and give him a better chance of success for the long term. He's giving him this opportunity. He's basically saying, okay, I want you to have this and maybe even more than I had when I was young. So it's what a healthy locker room looks like. And it's hard to put a quantifiable value on it. I mean, how many wins is this worth? I don't know. I don't know how many it's worth. I do know that it's the kind of thing that makes a difference when you're in a tough situation. It's the kind of thing that makes a difference, for example, when you come back from a loss in Kansas City that could have been crushing to the point that it tore apart your season. And yet you respond 7 days later by playing the best game of your season against Atlanta. Past Bronco teams, if they'd lost a game like that to Kansas City, or even lost a game that didn't have that sort of emotional heft, they ended up cratering, right? Think about the Broncos when they lost to the Bengals in 2021, that game that was, two trains headed in the opposite direction. And that was a tough loss in the fourth quarter. Of course, the infamous option, read option, and the ball squirts out when Drew Lock is getting to the outside, and the free rusher just takes it from him. And we all remember, what happened after that. There was the replay on it, just kind of a madcap play. But I mean, the Broncos were 7-6 going into that game, and they were still 7-7 coming out of it. But then, of course, they don't win any more games. They go to Las Vegas next week, and the offense is just this inert object that goes nowhere. And then they lose the next game to LA. And it's, again, all these times that the Broncos would have just tough losses, and it would just be poof, that was it for them during the World of Suck era. Well, it's different now. I mean, I don't think we look back at that Atlanta game enough last year as sort of a sign that this really was a different team with a different culture. And so when you have these guys that are together and they're looking out for each other in every single way, of course, when they're tough, they're not going to splinter. They're going to come together even more, and they're going to rally and be resilient and play the kind of game that they did against Atlanta. It's the sort of game that the sort of game and the sort of week where they probably would have beaten anybody in the league that day. Of all the teams playing that weekend, the Broncos probably were the best on that day, that weekend. And it's because they had these sorts of intangibles, these sorts of things you can't measure. I mean, we've got analytics to measure almost everything, but we don't have analytics to measure team culture. We don't have analytics to measure team bonding and all that sort of thing. But we do see ways in which it manifests. We do see how it comes together. And when we witness things like this that I'm talking about, with Adam Trautman talking about it, with Trent Sherfield talking about it, we see the bits of evidence of all this coming together. So it's weird for me being an analytics and numbers guy, do a show on something like this, which is decidedly not data-based, but it does matter. So William Hayes saying Pat Bryant's going to be the number 2 receiver. Hey, wouldn't that be something? He's having a good camp. Had a touchdown on Thursday. Keeps making those plays. No doubt. Albert or Michelle, have you seen this type of camaraderie before with the Broncos? I'd say it's a good question. Most successful teams have this. I say most, not all. Definitely the 2010s teams had it. It definitely came from the top down. Even though John Fox was not the coach in 2015, he definitely fostered that sort of culture from the moment he came in. So that was the most profound change, I think, actually, right when he came in 2010 in 2011 after going 4-12 in 2010. Now, I mean, he didn't have to do much to make things better coming out of the Josh McDaniels years, but that was one of the things that was pretty clear, is that he really did do a lot to improve the chemistry and camaraderie of that team, and that became a team of guys that really, really started even in 2011, even before Peyton Manning came in, to start looking out for each other and identifying the right guys who could come in and bring people together. Like a great example of the right kind of guy to fit that team and bring people together in 2011 was Willis McGahee, who not only was an incredibly prolific running back that year, but was a personality who fit that team perfectly. I mean, for my money, Willis McGahee was the offensive MVP of that team. Yeah. Tebowites can fight me on that. Oh, gosh. Oh, boy. That might tick people off, but whatever, I still like to poke the bear on that one. Nice to see the RVA hat on Mace. Yep, that's the RVA. It's a flying squirrel right there. Yep. The Richmond Flying Squirrels, AA team. Mason is Midnight Voice. Yeah. The smooth, dulcet tones of Midnight Mace. Logan, Mace, haven't heard anything on Huang looking like a beast. Well, I'll actually cite something that Sean Payton said about Jaleel McLaughlin, saying that the best of him doesn't show up until you get to the tackling mode. And, of course, for Jaleel McLaughlin, in that case, it's that he's making people miss tackles. That's when it really shows up. So kind of the same thing for Hufanga being a hitter. It's going to probably show up most when the tackles come in. Now, sort of, you have the stages of camp, of camp in the preseason. You've got the first stage, no pads, and the second stage, pads go on. We start to find out more, and then, of course, obviously, when it gets to full contact, now sometimes those guys are going to get those preseason games, sometimes not. The closest thing we'll usually get for some guys, of course, is those joint practices. We'll see, obviously, one in a little less than a week, because now it's in August. It's Friday, and now it's August. So I think Hufanga's doing fine. I mean, he's in the right place at the right time. What I haven't seen is kind of that big whoa moment, that big wow moment. It hasn't happened yet. The big splash play, like Brandon Jones has had one of those, diagnosing a screen, getting in position, blowing it up, although not with a big hit, just being in the right place. That hasn't happened yet for Hufanga, but he's been solid and he's been steady. So I'm not worried about him at all. There was football to watch tonight, Uplifter 3. Yeah, there was football to watch. Thought Trey Lance looked pretty good tonight. I was texting a friend of mine who's a Chargers fan and saying I kind of like the investment in him. Of course, they also have Taylor Heineke, who's the primary backup to Justin Herbert. By the way, I mean, what does it say about the Chargers? They don't even play the second teamer tonight. They played the third team quarterback, but looked pretty good. And even though it's the preseason opener, it doesn't mean all that much. I can't imagine Dan Campbell was happy with the effort overall from his Lions. Although, a guy that we talked a little bit about leading into the draft, Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, looked pretty good tonight. So, showing off that length that he had. That impressive length for Isaac Tesla. Going across the middle, making some plays too. So, anyhow, Denver football after dark here on a Thursday night into Friday morning. See some things in the chat here. Want to post one more here, one more soundbite from Trent Sherfield. I asked Trent, since he was talking about kind of the growth of Pat Bryant, like in football, away from football, so kind of, okay, you're seeing him more growing as kind of a player, a football guy, or more as a man in terms of your mentorship of him. And here's what Trent had to say when I asked him about that.
I would say both, man. I think that you, as a rookie, you come in, you're like I said earlier, you're expecting it to be one way, and then you get here and you kind of, oh man, that's not what I thought it was. And so you have some old traits that you have in college that you got to get rid of. Then you got to pick up some new ones. And so it's a lot of trial and error. You know, do I get in the hot tub and cold tub after practice, or do I wait a little bit? Do I lift after practice? There's so many different things. But I see that he's getting better, right? Seen today, he made a bunch of plays today, caught a touchdown, caught a big play from explosive play from Bo Nix. And I want him to be better than me. I want him to be the best in the room, because that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, there's going to be, I'll get down in my career, I'll be done playing, and he's still going to be playing. And I want him to be able to, you know, do the things the right way on the field, off the field, and be able to take care of his family. So,
yep. Trent Sherfield, and like I said, the full conversation is going to be at denversports.com in the next couple of days. Busy day, so I didn't have a chance to post that. Also, we've had a couple of interviews posted over at the Denver Sports YouTube channel. My chats with Dondrea Tillman and Adam Trautman are both over there, so make sure you check them out and learn a little bit about where the Broncos stand, where those guys stand. Some good players. Good comments there in the chat in the chat right now, the live chat. Thank you, Mace. Always enjoyed listening since your DNVR days. Always my favorite. Broncology was my handle back then. Your continued coverage. Thanks for your continued coverage. Appreciate you. Appreciate you checking this out, especially at this hour. Although I do appreciate everyone watching. I know a lot of you checking this out in the daylight hours. I call it Denver Football After Dark, but I do appreciate people watching even in the daylight, whenever. Nighttime, daytime. It's always a good time for a little After Dark. To me, it's the vibe more than the time of day when you watch the show. It's more just kind of taking it a little slower and bringing it down a little bit. So, goodness gracious. Kodiak Broncos podcast. Should we be worried if Cam Ward's life isn't miserable week 1? I'll say this. History of rookie quarterbacks going on the road in week 1, history of number 1 overall pick quarterbacks as rookies going on the road in week 1, says that the Broncos should absolutely dominate the Titans and Cam Ward. So, yeah, maybe you should be a little bit concerned if they don't come out and wreck Ward and wreck the Titans. I mean, the only number 1 overall pick in the common draft era at quarterback to win a week 1 game on the road, to be the starter for a team that won week 1 on the road as a rookie, was John Elway. And as maybe you older fans might recall, he wasn't the reason the Broncos won that game. He got benched for Steve DeBerg, and Steve DeBerg had to lead the Broncos back to a win at Pittsburgh on that sultry afternoon at Three Rivers Stadium in 1983. So it's tough sledding for a top pick or any rookie quarterback to go on the road in that first game. Even tougher going to a hostile environment like Mile High. Even tougher going against a team coming off a playoff appearance that appears to be better across the board. Even more difficult against a defense that led the league in sacks last year and set a franchise record in sacks. I mean, if you're the Titans and Cam Ward, you really couldn't ask for much worse of a matchup to start off. Honestly, it's why I thought that if Will Levis were healthy, they probably would have thrown Will Levis to the Wolves in week 1. I think they would have started Cam Ward sooner rather than later, but I think their play probably should have been Will Levis in week 1 before his injury. Now they don't have much of a choice. I mean, are they really going to would they really throw Brandon Allen out there? No, I don't think so. Cam Ward's taking all the first team reps. Cam Ward, barring some unforeseen change, is going to be the starting quarterback. And the Broncos should expect to clean up. If they don't, I think there should be some disappointment. Even though the Broncos have started slowly the last couple of years, they're expecting to start fast. And this is another thing. You've heard it a few times in the offseason and even the last several days. Something that is on their mind is starting fast and not digging the hole that they've dug for themselves the last 2 years. Of course, it was a 1-5 hole and an 0-3 hole back in 2023, and it was the 0-2 hole last year. Just get off to a better start so you're not kind of chasing. Now, that being said, Sean Payton always talks about the race to get better, and he alluded to it when he's talking about the running game, that he feels like he's not going to have a good idea what this running game is until after 4 games. So you're focused on having a good start, and yet you're not going to know really what a key aspect of this team is going to be until after 4 games. So that's sort of the conundrum. These things count. You've got to figure things out. It's like you've got to repair the plane while it's in the air, or you've got to build, almost like, actually a better analogy is you're building the plane while you're getting it off the ground. But that's the way it is now. You have a short preseason, and even in that short preseason, you don't play your starters very much, and some teams don't play them at all because they don't want to take the risk. We're a long way from the 70s when, up until 1978, 77 was the last year, believe it or not, a 6-game preseason. Can you imagine that? A 6-game preseason and a 14-game regular season. 6 preseason games. Preseason seemed long enough with 3. 6! I mean, we should be gouging your eyes out by the end of it. I mean, I think after tonight's preseason game, there are some people that have had enough. Oh, my gosh. Oh, I like this one. QB's name Cam do not fare well against the Broncos. Yeah, not only could Cam not do it in the Super Bowl, he couldn't do it in 2012 in Charlotte. He couldn't do it in 2016 when he came back to Denver in week 1. And he couldn't do it in New England in 2020. Although by then he was a shadow of his former self. Injuries had taken their toll. That was not the Cam Newton that once was a great quarterback. It was actually sad to watch Cam Newton after his body had broken down. By the time we got to New England in the COVID year of 2020 and watched him in that empty stadium, like it was actually pretty painful to watch him try to operate. That wasn't the guy. That was actually a shame. So, Cali Bronco. Philip Lindsay said Estime was pouting the other day. I feel the report wasn't true. Have you heard anything about this? I always feel it's a dangerous game to start playing when you assume a player is pouting or you start judging body language or things like that. You don't know what is going through a player's mind. Like, okay, maybe the shoulders are slumped. Maybe it looks like they're pouting. How do you know they didn't just have a bad phone call before practice started and you don't have something and something's on their mind? How do you know that they didn't just hear bad news the night before? Like, there's so much that could be going on. You don't know what could be in that player's mind. So stuff like that, I always try to stay away from because we don't know what's going on in their lives that could be on their mind at that moment. It's also that sort of line of criticism, I believe, also is getting personal. And I believe that you don't make it personal. You focus on the sport and the football. That's just how I operate. Others' mileage may vary. So, a couple more comments here before I go. It's actually going to be the topping out ceremony for the new building at 9 a.m. Mountain Time on Friday morning. So I'm going to go check that out. So that's why I'm going to toddle off to bed here in a little bit. Exotic Gaming, I don't like the amount of national media got hyping us up. I feel like we did as good as the team nobody saw in the playoffs, let alone 500. Maybe it's just a me thing. Yeah. Sometimes the hype can get a little bit too much. I say just it's cool to see people talking about the Broncos again, but take all of it with a grain of salt. Hey, if you want to avoid the hype, if you want to just take an antidote to the hype, then you can just listen to whatever Nick Wright is, whatever folderol he's putting out there, because he's just putting a lot of crap out there. He'll be happy to go out there and tell you how Denver stinks and won't go anywhere and they're overrated and they're going to finish in last place. So yeah, if you ever start getting tired of, the hype, just go watch Nick Wright, because he'll just tell you the Broncos stink and aren't going to do anything. But I don't want to encourage you to watch that guy, because I think he's just not a very good broadcaster, but that's just me. I don't watch a lot of national shows anyway, but I just, when you clearly have a bias like that, and it just comes across like I don't know. It's like he comes across like he had a girlfriend in high school that was a Denver fan and broke his heart, and he's never gotten over it. That's how it seems to me. It's weirdly personal, and again, it would be like me saying. He goes off on Nikola Jokic. He wouldn't admit Nikola Jokic was a truly great player for the longest time, which I thought was ridiculous. It would be like me sitting here and saying, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes isn't great." That'd be stupid to not acknowledge he's a great quarterback. It would be stupid for me to not acknowledge that Travis Kelce is a great tight end who's headed for the Hall of Fame, or Andy Reid is not a great coach. Andy Reid's probably in the pantheon with Don Shula and Bill Belichick and Vince Lombardi at this point. I think you can objectively say that. For me to deny that would be to deny objective reality. For him to, for years, dismiss Nikola Jokic because he happened to play for Denver, basically, which I think is basically the case. If you play for Denver, you can't be good in his eyes. I think that's to deny objective reality. So, anyway, that's my rant about Nick Wright. I really don't want to say any more about that guy. So, rant over. He treats Denver and Bo like Skip treats LeBron. Yeah. Anyway, all right. If it wasn't for double standards, Nick Wright would have no standards at all. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. On that note, I got to bring myself down here a little bit, because I do have to wake up in the morning and go cover that topping out ceremony for the new building that's being constructed and will be finished next year. So appreciate all of you joining me here tonight for this edition of Denver Football After Dark. If you like this, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I know many of you have, so that's why plenty of you were here and live, and I appreciate you checking in. And I appreciate all of you checking this out on the archived version. Whenever you watch this show, live, delayed, in the evening, in the morning, whether it's after dark or over your coffee. I'm grateful for all of you checking this out. I appreciate all the positive, the constructive feedback, the positive comments. Thank you for joining me on this. Thank you for supporting me on this, and plenty more to come. I've got a few topics I want to dive into, and we're going to have another show like this on Friday night after what I hope is probably a more interesting practice on Friday as the Broncos, I believe they're going to put pads on Friday and get back to it in advance of going to San Francisco next week for a joint practice. It'll be a very interesting week. Appreciate all of you joining me, and thanks a lot. I'll have a report from Broncos training camp on Friday, as always, and of course, Cecil Lammey and I will be talking about all this on Orange and Blue today at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, Friday afternoon on the Denver Sports YouTube channel, and of course, Facebook and Twitter, X, and all that. So, appreciate it. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.